or at the time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Some really interesting points made there and some interesting issues for discussion later on. Our final speaker is Ahmad Wali Ahmad Yar from Vrije University in Brussels. Ahmad.
Hello, good morning. Do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So my name is Ahmad Wali. I'm originally from Afghanistan, and I'm doing my PhD now at the Free University of Brussels. I have been living in Belgium since last 5 years, and before that I used to work with the UNHCR Refugee Agency in Central Asia. For about 3 years, I worked on migration with a leading think tank here in Brussels. And now I'm working on a big European project called Hummingbird on migration. So basically, I have worked a lot and I have advised a lot of refugees joining the universities and higher education. I have quite some experience on that aspect also, but today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about migration in general and what we are doing within this project on migration and why it is important to understand migration. So before I go forward and make my point, I just want to say a few words about the Hummingbird Project. Hummingbird stands for Enhanced Migration Measures from a Multidimensional Perspective. So basically, this is a Horizon 2020 funded project, which consists of a very, very multidisciplinary consortium with 16 partners from over 10 countries. The people, the partners are not only universities and research centers, but it's also NGOs like international organizations like Caritas and also European Research Infrastructure Consortium. So it's very, very diverse. And also in terms of like experts working on this project, it is also very diverse, and the experiences of people who are working, it could be from anthropology, political science, social sciences, telecom engineering, computer sciences, and people working with satellite technology. And what is the overall goal of this project is to improve the understanding of changing nature of migration flows, drivers of migration, analyze the patterns of migration, understand how it would be like the future of migration, migration trends, and also to calculate population estimates, how migration basically happens and how it's going to be in the future. And why it's important to know all of these, I will say this in a second. So basically, I'm a researcher on this project, and I will say that what is my role within this project. So basically, recently we know that there is a lot of discussions over migration, people talking, especially at the political level and also at the social level, that why do we need migration? Some people are against migration, some people are pro-migration, while in reality migration is inevitable, necessary, and desirable. Migration is a normal part of our life. It has always been there and it will be there. We cannot stop migration. It is like there is no difference, for example, between migration, trade, education, development, business, or any other aspect of our life. For example, if we try to stop trade, or trade have its positive or negative aspects, also development, business, everything. So we could say basically that there is no such things as anti-migration or pro-migration. You cannot be anti-migration. However, if we don't understand migration properly, and if we don't know how to organize migration, how to help people, and how to do it, then this poses a challenge and a problem. Now, how to know migration and how to understand migration, this is very important. And there have been very little work on that, basically, to understand migration better. In order to understand and manage migration, we need information on migration, we need to understand. And the information so far have been only minimized to migration data or statistics. But the existing statistics is inaccessible, not reliable, not timely, and it does not say a lot about today's migration, especially at the international level. So what is important is what happens then is that these problems within these statistics hinders decision makers or politicians at policy level to it does not allow them to develop informed policies. And also we should know that not everything is based on data. We really need to complement our data with the new things like listening to migrants, understanding migration from migrants' perspective, and also allowing migrants to express themselves. We know that many countries have been collecting data on migration since the 1920s or since 1930s. But the problem is that many countries collect data, many countries gather information, but the information at the national level does not comply with the international information at the international level. Why? Because countries, they collect information based on different measures, different definitions, and different methodologies. For example, a migrant can be defined something in Belgium, which is different than, for example, in an African country or an Asian country or in Australia or North America. And that creates problem for the international organization like the UN or IOM or the OECD, that when they want to put these data together to understand like the movements and also to understand the dynamics of migration. There have been several recommendations, but this problem of data on migration have not been tackled because I think politicians think that this is not an important issue and we really don't need to tackle this problem. But also by the development of technology and by the development of new things, there are new ways that people are trying to tackle this problem of migration. And that could include like the usage of big data for migration. In the slide, I have put big data rush. So basically, it's inspired by the gold rush in California. That if we may remember, there was a time that someone discovered some gold there, and then all the people were rushing to go and towards like digging this gold. And now big data have also become something like that. A lot of researchers, they are trying to use this sort of data for migration also, and also for the other aspect. And what is basically big data for migration? It could include like mobile phone calls, call records, satellite data, social media data, all different sources of digital traces that people leave, and a lot of this. And it has been a lot polarized and publicized that, okay, this could be a good solution for filling the gap in migration data. But in reality, it's not like that. I have been reviewing like the papers and the studies that uses this sort of data to project migration, and the reality is this is very limited. Even like in 2018, the International Organization for Migration, they said that they used Facebook data to estimate global migration, and their estimation was 270 million around the world. And it was very close estimation to the UN estimation that they did the estimation based on the existing statistical data, and the UN data was 260. So they were almost very, very close. But when you go to the essence and the substance of this new big data, you see that it cannot say a lot, or in many cases it have been used as a complementary for the existing statistics. And as I say that the big data can be a high potential and something very new, but it has a lot of risks also. So what are the risks is that the risk of like ethical aspects, privacy, moral, and who uses this sort of data. And we still are in the very beginning of using this sort of data. There is no evidence that using such data will give us very exact information, which is really real time, and we can solve the problems based on that. And and also, this sort of data is used mainly by data scientists or computer scientists, people who can retrieve this sort of data. But what we really need is the collaboration between social scientists, not only social scientists, like people who work on ethics, people who work on political science, on different aspects of science. So to really find a better way of manipulating or benefiting from these sources of data to understand migration better. But within the Hummingbird project, as I mentioned, we just not rely on this new big data or traditional statistics. What we do is, as part of this project, we really try to understand migration by synthesizing quantitative and qualitative scenarios, or quantitative and qualitative data. What does that mean is that it is really important to have the perspective, understanding, experience of migrants, not only migrants like what we say is that the refugee migrants or migrants that have been like in the media like showing, but also like to have a really proper understanding, like the previous migration journeys and experiences, by focusing on the settled migrants, like people who undertook migration many years ago, or they have experience, and how they see that. And also, as part of this project, we conduct like broader ethnographic field work to collect data by listening to the migrants en route, on the way, especially now that what we call is like the hubs or migration migration hubs in different parts of the world. And also to see or to look into and listen to the vulnerable migrants, like migrant women, children, unaccompanied minors, refugees, asylum seekers, and all of these, to gain insight about the specific vulnerabilities of them and how they see like the migration processes. Also, the project focuses to generate and update the new information on the state of art of the qualitative migration scenarios. So basically, to understand how today's migration policies will impact tomorrow's migration, and also to provide recommendation on this specific aspect of migration. So this is a very broad explanation of what we are doing, because I know that it's very important that universities are doing, and the governments, and there is a lot of polarization behind these migration issues. Universities claiming that I mean, universities are trying to do some sort of support for immigrants. But then, in essence, as someone who benefits from this, they always have different experiences, as it was also mentioned in the previous PowerPoint presentation. So I will leave it there, but then we can discuss things further over the discussions. Thank you very much for your attention.
You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. That concludes the presentation part of our webinar, and we've had some really interesting presentations, from the very personal testimony of our first speaker to some of the academic models and theories about migration and refugees, to very practical initiatives as well. So it's been really inspiring, and it's very inspiring to hear the different initiatives that are taking place in the different universities. We're now open to questions or comments, so please feel free in the chat to enter any comment or question. While you're doing that, it struck me when Ahmad was speaking, he mentioned the Off University, and I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but due to COVID, there's been a non-precedented development of online resources in all of our universities. So we have so many online courses available now, and it strikes me there must be a method where we could use some of these resources in this area to help maybe universities in countries where migrants are coming from, or to help migrants themselves. So that might be a thought I think we should think about. These resources will be there, they will be available. Post-COVID, most of our universities will return to face-to-face teaching, but we have great resources available, and it might be worth people bearing in mind, could we use some of those to help in this problem? But please, any comments for our speakers? I'd be really interested. Or if any of our panelists have an additional comment they'd wish to make. So. Okay.
Well, if I just may take up the point you raised regarding the online resources and the habit of meeting on Zoom all the time, that was a byproduct of the Corona crisis. I think at Academy in Exile, at the very least, we intend to continue building on this experience by, profiting from we have a decentralized structure in any way with our various partner institutions and the consortium and the fellows being hosted at the various locations. So we actually intend to continue having at least a part of our activities online, and making, also after this Corona period will have succeeded. And at the same time, we, from the very beginning, had as one of the components of our program the quest of developing online courses that will be offered to students from any country. I mean, we have a YouTube channel, and some of our courses are simply put on the YouTube channel for people to follow, and they're being taught by fellows in our program and offered to students also from the various countries where those scholars come from, where there are infringements on academic freedom. And I think that the internet can really help overcome the barriers that are created in an increasing number of countries where academic freedom and civic freedoms more generally are being pushed back, unfortunately. And I think, yeah, the internet can really help here.
Great, thank you. And I have a question for you, Ahmad, from what are the key performance indicators policymakers want to see from universities when integrating exiled scholars in their universities? Does that make sense?
Maybe I didn't quite get the point.
Sorry, what are the key performance indicators policymakers might want to make when integrating refugees into their courses?
Well, I don't know about policymakers, but the key indicators that we apply are, academic merit, because we need to be able to, give those scholars whom we host a chance to, get a foot into the existing academic system, which is neoliberal academia. So, you have all the competitiveness that comes along with it. So academic merit is kind of a sine qua non. And then we, of course, evaluate the risk status, which, is something that all the programs in support of scholars at risk do naturally. Plus, in our specific case, the suitability for our cohort model and the programs that we are running in terms of publications and courses and stuff.
And there was a related question measuring the impact of supporting refugees researchers.
Well, the impact, well, it's hard to measure impact anyway. I'm not a big fan of all this evaluation research that is being done all over the place. You know, we try not to treat our fellows as refugees. You know, we treat them as colleagues, as researchers, and all the usual criteria of measuring the impact of our research can be applied to them as well. That means, you know, if they publish in peer-reviewed journals, number of publications, participants in the conferences, all the usual stuff that is being, you know, used to evaluate the impact.
Okay, and I may have used a phrase that one of our participants is asking what is meant by with exile. So I'm not sure if I used that phrase or one of our panelists used that phrase. If anyone has any.
I mean, I think it was being used in the context of if someone is in exile, it means they've been forcibly displaced. I think that was the understanding I had of it.
Okay, thanks, Marin.
I just wanted to make a point, if it's okay.
Yes, of course, Ahmad.
Okay, so I want to share some of my experience, how I entered the university. And I think it's going to be interesting for our fellows here because they are from university perspective. And it's also good to see it from a refugee perspective or from a migrant perspective. I have 2 times applied for the universities here in Belgium, and I really wanted to use these facilities that they have given to the refugees. The first time there was an event on refugees, and we were asked to go there and talk about refugees, and I entered the university. It was a French-speaking university in Belgium, and they had written this big, huge banner like refugees are welcomed and we support you here. And I say that this is the place that I'm going to study here because we are welcomed here. And then I waited until I got my decision and I had my papers and I went to this university. They asked me that, okay, maybe you apply as a regular student and then we will see how we can help you. I applied as a regular student and then I went there and they say that, okay, you have to comply with these certain certain things that we have. And then that thing was that, okay, you should not be enjoying from the social welfare, you should not be doing this, you should not be doing this. And then in the end, I said that, okay, so maybe I'm not complying with this thing. And then I asked them that at least you could just waive my fee. That is the minimum a university can do. They said that, okay, we will send this to our like executive committee meeting, something. So then you will have that. I said, okay. What happened after a couple of months? They made a decision. They said that, okay, there is a Belgian regulation according to the royal decree or something. So we are sorry, we cannot cover that. And then at the meantime, I lost my social welfare because the social welfare office, they always doesn't want the universities usually to go to the university because it takes very long for them to keep paying you. Then I tried another university. So I went to this other university and their website, still now, even if you Google, they have this banner that, okay, refugees are welcome. And I said, maybe I would be welcome there this time. I went there, so I applied at the same process and everything. And then I had a meeting with this like social office. It's a university in Belgium, in the Flemish speaking part. I went there and then they said that, okay, so in order to be eligible for this for this social like fund that we have for you, you have to have certain conditions to fulfill this condition. And I said, okay. They said that the minimum income of you should be like 10,000 euros taxed money. You should not be dependent on the social welfare. The maximum income of you should not go up from 27,000 euros. And that should also not be taxed. So if it is taxed, it means that you are. And then there was other condition that she wanted to read. I said, no, wait. I think you can, even if you design a person into these conditions, they will not fulfill this condition, because if I have an earning of like between 10,000 to 27,000, why would I come and ask for social welfare? And then have you ever seen any refugee who is not dependent on social welfare? And that doesn't make sense. And then I asked her a question that, how many refugees have you covered with this thing so far? And she said, to be really honest, not any yet. I said, yes, because it does not really do anything for them. And then I asked them that, okay, maybe you could just waive my tuition fee, and that would be the greatest help you can do. I really don't need your social support even. And then they say that, okay, so you have to wait 1 year, and then you should send us your last year's income for us, and then we will evaluate and we will decide on that. And then I said, okay, no, I think I'm fine with it. I will pay the thing. And I came back and I paid their thing. So I finished my master's there, and then I worked for 3 years, and then I regularly applied, and now I'm working as a researcher at the VII. I know VIB is a bit different because they have a lot of support for the refugees, as Ahmad explained earlier. So here it's a bit different experience. I mean, universities could really share experiences, and also not to look into this very narrow-minded way of helping refugees, but also like the external things that impact refugees. Not only that, okay, I open my doors, like this university, the first one that I went, they say that we have open doors for refugees, but then they don't know what that open doors mean. The open door doesn't mean that someone can enter the university, but it should be all other like aspects or elements, social elements that impact this refugees. They should really consider that. And that's what I wanted the universities to know, because I know that here we have some university representatives.
That's really helpful, and you found yourself in a catch-22 situation there, and I think as a university manager or whatever, it's something that would really concern me, and I'm sure your problem is not unique, so it's something for us to certainly to think about and see what we can do about. Any of the other panelists, a final comment? We're coming up towards the end of our time.
I can say something.
Please,
relating a little bit to the question of impact. So Orla Duke shared a comment in the chat that the Inspire Europe mapping showed some interesting findings on the impact of receiving researchers at risk. So the universities often would have the reason why they would take in researchers at risk would be based on solidarity, values of the university, etc. And then when they receive the scholars, they would see that they had a lot of different also benefits, such as diversity of the workforce, more perspectives presented, etc., etc. I would also add, when it comes to this individual level, that I think it's really important to know that the higher education sector is very competitive, both for students and for academics. And as Akim said, it's important that you will be measured on the same measures and others, so that it's important to make the researchers able to compete in this hard environment. So it means that publishing, getting research funding, teaching, doing all those academic activities is really, really important. So to make people able to do that in a very good way, I think it's important. And for the students, it goes a little bit to the same, that it would be better if you can be able to enter a normal program on the normal basis and have all the requirements available. and then you will also come out successful. So I think to lift people up to being able to compete on the same level is one of our goals.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a lovely note to conclude our seminar on. I want to take this opportunity to thank Luciana and thank the UNICA team for facilitating this webinar, to thank our panelists for putting so much work into their presentations. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. And to thank our participants for bearing with us and bearing with my accent. I'm sorry if I speak too quickly. Hopefully, we've given you some inspiration and some ideas. I know I've taken several ideas that I hope to follow up on in the future. UNICA have several interesting seminars coming up later this month and next month. So please do have a look at the UNICA website and for more interesting webinars. So for now, thank you all very much for coming, and I wish you a safe and happy Christmas now that we're in the Christmas season. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well done, Joe.
Thanks, Maren.
Thank you very much, Joe. Very good, really excellent. I really liked it. A very good also discussion at the end. So I think this topic is very important. Unfortunately, I think in this period, but we can keep in touch, again afterwards, and then okay. So thank you very much, Joe. Bye bye.
Thanks very much,
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Vicky.
Bye.